Okay, so this is the February 2026 MLBB tier list for Rome, and yes, the meta right now is quite confusing, so if you feel a bit confused or you don't really know what works right now, this video is for you. Then this is of course part of a 5-part series. We have already uploaded XP lane, jungle as well as mid lane. We only have Rome and gold left. So without further ado, let's just jump straight in, but right before that, let's explain the tiers a bit. The standard tiers, we have B tiers, which are viable but outclassed picks. Then we have A tier for the strong meta picks. And then we have S tier picks for the top tier picks with minimal counters. Now we realize that for Roam, we actually have two subcategories. We have situational as well as the support room category, which we will talk about more later. Okay, so we'll start from the bottom and work our way up to the top. In the situational tier for Roam, we are starting off with Hellcut. Now, Hellcut Roam is a phenomenon, right? It's like a revolution that has been popularized by the pro scene. Hellcut Roam really isn't as simple as it looks. You get really strong early kill pressure and you get really good info. However, the risk of a Hellcut Roam is very high because number one, you cannot execute a Hellcut Roam in every single draft composition. When you pick a Hellcut Roam, you have to make sure that your jungle is some sort of a utility jungler and your XP lane isn't pure damage, which means you cannot go for something like a Benedetta, you cannot go for something like a Paquito. It has to be somewhat sustained focus like a Lapu Lapu or maybe something tankier like a Uranus. Why? Because you still need that chunkiness that you get from a roamer, and that swap out for with a tank for an assassin really doesn't benefit the team if you don't have someone to frontline instead, right? So Hellcut Roam is really about the kill pressure. You really just want to snowball from the very first minute onwards. Your turret push potential is still very strong even if you get behind on a Hellcut. So you must make sure to utilize that to your advantage. Now I have seen some very good Hellcut Roam videos online. So for solo queue players or even any type of players at all, if you are unsure of how to use Hellcut Roam, or if you've seen some of your friends or some of your teammates not very sure how to maximize his potential, do make sure to check it out and we might even consider doing a Hellcut Roam video in the future. Now we have one other hero in this situational category, and if you can't guess who it is, it will be Chip. Now Chip is another one of those heroes which are very dependent on the situation, right? He cannot be played anywhere, and I in fact do not advise him anywhere apart from in the 5-man. Why is because he requires a lot of communication. If you are the one playing the Chip and you're not in a 5-man, your portals really need to nothing. And if your teammate is the one playing Chip, they will probably just end up blaming you for not following up on their outs. Now Chip is a very macro based hero. His ult does way more than just backdoors. He can use it to set up team fights, set up flanks, pair up with a Luoyi for flank angles. And speaking of Luoyi, she is probably the only hero in the game that compares to his level of macro complexity, because it's really not easy to operate him, and for both heroes I really just advise playing them in the 5-man. But if you ask me to rank Chip like actual performance in a like communicated, coordinated 5-man, he will be easily around A tier. But the risk of playing a Chip is just so high, you do end up feeding if you don't get an early lead. He isn't the tankiest as well, and his openness to roam around the map really depends on how much you can open up the map in the first place. So if you get starved out, you get camped under your turrets, your jungle gets invaded, there's really a limit to how much your portals can do. Okay, now we are going on to the support roam category, and of course as I find all the supports, all the prominent ones there are, I think there's about 5 of them. As I find all the supports to put them under this category, I'm just gonna briefly explain how all of them work. Okay, we have officially found all of them. Yes, okay. Support roam is popular in rank. I know it's very popular. Every game or once every 2 games you get an Angela or you get a Florian, maybe even a Rafaela on your team. Yes, I know it's very popular in rank, but that doesn't mean it's great right now. You know, if the support buffs, I really thought support roam could become a thing. I even theorized about support mid. However, the meta is just so fast paced right now that these supports that are heavily reliant on their ult, and as well as their magic power to increase their utility and healing, really just start to fall off. With the exception of Matilda, of course, that can provide another form of utility with a guiding wind, really good for heroes with low mobility like a Terizla and an Ixia. The rest of the supports are really still reliant on that shield and sustain. And although yes, fighters are good right now, which make all of these sustain based fighters, which make all of these viable options, but you really miss out on the early poke potential. You really miss out on early info giving, you can't really play aggressive in the early game, you're forced to clear waves with your mid lane, which gives your opponents opportunities to rotate faster and potentially gank earlier. So that's why support room really isn't great right now. It's such a fast paced early snowball meta, and maybe in meta shifts they can become more relevant, especially if utility jungle comes back. We're going back to the M5 meta, maybe if assassins stop getting picked, and maybe fighter gold lane dies down as well. But I do know some of the changes that Moondon is trying to implement to counter these fighter gold, so maybe we'll see them later on this year. Okay, with that out of the way, we can officially begin the B tier. And starting off the B tier, we of course have Tigreal. Now Tigreal got a massive buff. I think they doubled his ult damage about there. Yeah, I think it was about double. But the ult damage isn't really the thing that keeps him up there. The thing that really keeps him at B, but not below B, but also not above B, is the fact that his set potential is so high. Now for Tigreal, he's really good in ranked. Not really much seen in pro play, although they do pick him once or twice in every tournament, but his set potential is really high. You can easily just rely on your Tigreal to turn the fights around, to really look for an angle, but he really only provides just that. So his utility doesn't really come in the form of anything else, and his skill base are very fixed. And hence Tigreal won't go higher than that because he really only has that one fixed job to do. Now, slightly above Tigreal though, about same purpose, but at least this guy has more utility, is Minotaur. Now Minotaur can set up fights just fine, but he has more airborne skills, and he of course has a heal. Now he also has a passive that makes him in outstate just much more unkillable and just a tankier guy to soak up every damage you throw at him, but he really isn't high above B. For similar reasons like Tigreal, you really need that snowball to win, you really need that flank angle, and for more telegraph teams, it's really hard for you to come and set out as a Minotaur unless you're in a choke point such as near the Lord fight, near the Turtle Pits, or even near the buffs. That's where sub tanks like Minotaur and Tigreal really shine, because if your opponents do not have flicker, it's practically impossible for them to not get caught in your radius, and hence Minotaur and Tigreal will be starting off in the B tier. A rumor that was really popular last year but fell off a huge ton. Next we have Badang. Now Badang, okay. Firstly, it's because the Thunder Belt isn't really prevalent now, right? Heroes that are reliant on Thunder Belt have started to fall off, and the most prominent example is of course the Badang. Now Badang's early pressure is still really strong, right? Your wall can still come in really clutch, your first skill can be used for zoning and also poke to really proc that extra gold you get from roaming when you check the enemies, but he really isn't great at what he does. A lot of what he does in his kit gets overshadowed by more high impact picks in the A and S tier that basically do the same thing but with much less risks. If you see a Badang in pro play, they usually force out their own flicker like less than 2 minutes in before the first turtle, before even forcing out anything from the enemy. It's just so easy to evade a Badang now that his skill cooldown I think got increased, his impact to roll around gets reduced, and he really just isn't the best at what he does. So Badang will be dropping down to B tier. And for the last hero in B tier, we have Baxia here. Now Baxia just really isn't as contested right now. He used to be contested in all 3 lanes, XP, jungle and roam, but with meta shifts he really does fall off. Now the meta favors very tempo heavy, very recyclable skills. It's really about whether you can recycle your skills faster than your enemies, whether your skill cooldowns can refresh faster. And Baxia just really doesn't facilitate that because his stun is like a 15-second, once in 15 seconds kind of thing, and you're not even guaranteed to hit it. And most Baxias even use it for disengage, especially when you check for vision. You really don't have much mobility as a Baxia, apart from popping your ult and spraying and praying and just using your wheel to get out. So Buckshot isn't really the best at checking info. He's still slightly better than these heroes, I feel, because he isn't really out-dependent. His niche is always great in the game, having the anti-heal, having that damage reduction, and he is just good in certain compositions, but really not that much when you're looking for more utility. And that will conclude the B tier. Moving on to the A tier, starting off we have Khalid. Now I really didn't expect Khalid to be up here because of the Thunderbelt because of the changes of people's perception towards Thunderbelt, right? It really isn't as valued as it was in maybe like June or like April 2025, but he's good because of the map changes, right? With dangerous grass, with expanding rivers, with broken walls, Khalid can really get himself into these choke points that can easily starve out the enemy jungler. He can pressure kill so easily, his setup potential is way more versatile, is way more flexible, and is way more instant compared to the roamers in the B tier such as Minotaur and Tigreal, and he really just provides so much more utility. His early game invade is one of the strongest at level 1 because he can easily just poke and get out, just slightly lower than some of the heroes in the top tier. Now Khalid is just really good at what he does, but he doesn't really excel at anything, so I would just put him as a well-rounded roamer in the A tier. And after Khalid, we have Hylos in the A tier. Now arguably Hylos would be in S tier, but there are just a bit too many heroes in the S tier right now. I feel I really want to put like 5 or 6 heroes in the S tier, but that doesn't really define the tier list, right? Even within the good heroes, there are some heroes that are better than others, and in this tier list, we really want to reflect that no bias, and teams often only pick Hylos to account for the Gatot, right? If the Gatotkacha isn't picked, then Hylos wouldn't really be picked as well. He's really good at area denial, he's really good at engages, because once he engages with his glorious pathway, he can block out an entire path of escape for his enemies. He's really good at flanking, and he's really good if your team has good coordination. He can also soak up so much damage, but what really makes him fall short is again that utility. You still need that utility as a roamer, and I know I've been talking about utility a lot if you see my past 3 tier list, but that's really what this meta is all about. You have more utility, you'll be more recyclable, you're more flexible in your skills, most of your skills provide good value to team fights, you can get early game tempo, you snowball, and you win more games. I'm not saying that late game comebacks aren't seen, I'm sure we all still have that late game comeback factor, but early game snowball just became so much more important. And Hylos really doesn't have the extra inch to push the agenda for early game snowballs, and so he will be stuck in A tier. And for the final hero in the A tier, can you guess who it is? It is Kalea. Again, another hero that I really consider putting in S tier because even in professional play, teams still fear her. She's still a very strong pick. Her kit is very niche and no one really does what she does. Imagine being able to kidnap any one of your enemies of their choice, being basically a free Fury beta and basically Cho but with much safer execution, right? Kalea is just a really good hero, and I wouldn't say she really fallen off since her release. Ever since her release, she's still one of the heroes up there because like I said, her kit is really just really unique, right? She just excels at what she does, her info giving is very good, but again, in this recyclable meta, heroes like her with only one knockup from her S2 as a mobility every 10 seconds, and then out every 30 to 40 seconds even with fleeting time, it's just really punishable because enemies can easily just pop a Purify, pop a CC immune skill, and you're basically rendered useless for the next 30 to 40 seconds. You really can't really check for vision as well because once you get in there, it's very hard to get out unless you have a clearance for a wall to jump away, and that just puts Kalea in A tier because most of her skills don't really provide that utility. She's like a Tigreal, but you can only out one person at a time. And now, of course, we move on to the top of the top. We have the S tier heroes. Now these heroes, like I said, to define yourself being in S tier, you have to have number 1, really very good early game poke and invade potential. Number 2, you have to be able to get info easily, and number 3, you have to have some form of CC or some form of other utility to make it up if your CC really isn't that strong. So without further ado, starting off the S tier, in the 4th place we have Cho. Now Cho, like I said, can be compared to Kalea, In fact, I did say earlier, like about a minute ago, that Kalea is basically the safer execution version of Cho. However, Cho is something like a Fanny. Cho really gets in your nerves if you are a really good Cho player, or you have watched really good Cho gameplay from professional scene, from your ranked games, from even your friends. You can really turn things around with a Cho. Now Cho just controls the tempo so easily because his HP bar is so deceiving. He seems like he's low, then he just pops Jeet Kune Do and basically kicks you, immunes it with the Shunpo, and he's basically alive and you are not. His pressure is so damn high because you can easily dash away with his 3 to 4 dashes depending on whether you get level 2 early or not. You can really just dash away, engage, disengage, and you have so much flexibility in your combos. You can flicker kick, you can kick then flicker, you can do so many things with Cho. And there really isn't like a fixed usage for Cho. You can use him for map vision, you can use him for setup, you can use him for pick off. That's basically everything that you need in a roamer. However, the only reason I don't put him higher is because yes, he still has that risk factor. Many teams still are wary when they are picking him unless they are going up against another good Cho and it has to be contested early. So like I said, Cho a very strong pick in the good hands, but just because he doesn't provide super great utility and that his execution factor is very high, so he cannot be ranked higher in this tier list. At number 3, we have the old and thrusty Garukacha. Now, Garukacha is one of those rumors that prevailed in the S tier last year with Badang, but ever since then, Badang has fallen off and Garukacha has not. Despite the Thunderbell nerfs, Kali didn't get hit with it, and Gato even remained at the S tier. Why this is so is because of Gato's insane taunt mechanic. His taunt mechanic is so easy to execute that they had to be nerfed in the Cloud Rise patch, and although the taunt duration isn't that convenient right now, it is still a mechanic that's really strong in the game. He basically punishes everyone and makes them think twice before even going in, because the moment you engage on him or his team, he basically can cover with that free taunt. And during the taunt duration, it's sufficiently enough to burst anyone from the enemy team down because it just gives your team so much time to back you up. Furthermore, he has an ult that can be used for re-engage and secondary engage. Note that I don't say primary engage, it's more for counter engaging and secondary engaging because his ult is really just so easy to dodge. You really only use it for area denial, you really only use it to zone out the enemy backline when their roamer makes a set. You really only use it when you're confident that they don't have blink skills and that they're trapped by some form of CC to follow up. So Garukacha just a really good hero overall. I don't know if he's the best hero in solo rank, probably not, but he's just so reliant and such a fun hero to play in my opinion. The macro decisions you have to make on a Garukacha, whether to out away, whether to out in, whether to save your taunt or not, is really just insanely fun to play in my opinion. Might be a hot take though, probably is a hot take. At number 2, we have Hilda, right? Hilda is such a respectable pick right now. Especially with the modifiers, she is one of the heroes that benefited along with the Khalid. Right, you have your expanding rivers, you have your broken walls, you have your dangerous grass. All of those benefit early game invade potentials like Hilda. However, the only reason why she's above Khalid is because although she does not have the CC that Khalid provides with his ultimate, her kill pressure is so damn high. Imagine a Hellcut, but insanely annoying like 99% of the time, right? She is in your face from the minute 1, she can get so much info and just back out with her movement speed. She can basically 1v1 almost every single person on the enemy team from like level 2 onwards, and her ult is just really the cherry on top. She's basically Garukacha, but her presence and her sheer aura makes you think twice before even engaging on her or advancing into her territory, and she's just such a good roamer to zone the enemy out. The only reason why she isn't the top of the S tier is because she falls off late game. However, she only made it this far because, as we said, early game is so much more prior right now, and although she doesn't have the best late game, her early game does kind of cover for it. So even if she does fall off, she has already provided the team sufficient lead, right? She has opened the map enough, she's constantly trafficking for vision, and she's just such a pain to deal with. And for the best roamer in February 2026 in MLBB, in my opinion, it is still Grok. Now, Grok has been topping the S tier for roamers for a really long time, right? Ever since his revamp, just a few months later, teams have started to realize his utility. No longer playing XP, Grok is now a fully on roamer that just sets up teamfights so well. His barrier can be used in so many macro scenarios, it can block out choke points, it can freeze minion waves, it can delay turret shields, it can do so many things and even reset neutral objectives like the Lord if you place it properly. There's just so much macro as well as micro and decision making that goes behind a Grok player because your ult isn't really easy to operate as well. But he just provides so much utility to a team when you operate him right. A lot of his skills are CC immune, he has knockback and minor disruption skills in his kit. Almost every one of his skills can basically just knock you back or just disrupt your positioning a little, which can really easily reset these skill cooldowns. And he is just such a good tank to cover for his team because he's just so tanky with his passive, he gets so much shield, he gets so much survivability, and while doing all that, he's still able to set up so damn well and has a lower execution risk than someone like a Cho or even a Tigreal. So overall, Grok is just so damn good in the roamer section right now. Despite his nerfs, I still think that he's the best of the best in the roamer category. And with that, that is the February 2026 MLBB tier list for Rome. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I do hope that you enjoyed this series. Looking forward to the final video on Gold Lane.